I need you to stop what you are doing and look closely at the monitor screen right now. Do not look away. Focus on those green lines. That geometry you are seeing is a wireframe skeleton generated by an Xbox Kinect sensor. It is a standard debugging visualization used by game developers to track human movement in a three-dimensional space. You can see the articulation of the joints. You can see the spine curvature. You can see the head tracking orientation. The software indicates that a human subject is standing in the center of my room, approximately 4 feet from the camera lens. The tracking confidence level is hovering at 98%. That means the machine is absolutely certain that someone is standing there. Now, I want you to look at the webcam footage in the bottom right corner of the screen. This is the raw optical feed of the exact same room, taken at the exact same moment. Look at the floor. Look at the back wall. Look at the space where the skeleton is supposed to be standing. There is no one there. The room is completely empty. I am the only person in this apartment. I am sitting in my chair, 5 feet away from that spot. But the Kinect is not glitching. It is not hallucinating. Watch what happens when I pick up this heavy hardback book and throw it directly at the empty space. Watch the green skeleton on the main screen. It ducks. It raises its arms to shield its head. It reacts to a physical object moving through the air. The machine sees something that my eyes cannot. And judging by how fast it moved, it knows I am watching it. My name is Alex, and I work as an indie game developer specializing in survival horror. I have been working on a project that requires realistic character animations. Professional motion capture suits cost thousands of dollars, money that I do not have. So, I found a workaround. I read on developer forums that the old Kinect sensors are actually incredibly sophisticated depth cameras. They use time-of-flight technology, shooting out a grid of infrared photons to map the geometry of a room in real time. It's essentially a low-resolution LiDAR scanner, similar to what self-driving cars use to see pedestrians. I bought a used unit on eBay for $20. It arrived in a battered box, covered in dust. I plugged the proprietary adapter into my PC and installed the official Microsoft SDK drivers. At first, the experience was exactly what I hoped for. I mounted the sensor on a tripod on my desk, facing the open space of my living room. I launched the Kinect Studio debug tool. I stood in front of it, and a green stick figure appeared on the screen, mirroring my movements perfectly. I waved, it waved. The latency was incredibly low. I spent the entire afternoon recording basic animation assets. Walking loops, idle animations. It was tedious work, but the data was clean. I finished up around 11:30 p.m. I turned off the overhead lights, plunging the apartment into darkness, illuminated only by the cold blue glow of my monitors. The Kinect, being an infrared device, sees perfectly in the dark. I sat down at my desk to review the files. The skeleton tracking window was still open on my secondary monitor. That is when I saw the anomaly. In the bottom left corner of the preview window, near the floor, a jumble of green lines flickered into existence. At first, I thought it was a software artifact. A ghost caused by thermal noise. The software tries to find human shapes in random data sometimes. I reached for the mouse to reset the sensor calibration. But the lines didn't vanish. They snapped together. First the spine. Then the legs. Then the arms. A small, distorted skeleton formed in the corner of the room. It was low to the ground. Crouched. It looked like a child hiding in the corner, knees pulled up to its chest. I spun around in my chair, shining my phone's flashlight into the corner. Nothing. Just the white drywall. No pile of laundry. No shadows. I turned back to the screen. The green skeleton was still there. And then, as I watched, it slowly stood up. I sat frozen in my chair, the hum of my PC fan sounding deafeningly loud. The green stick figure on the screen unfolded itself with a jerky, unnatural motion. It wasn't a child. The proportions were wrong. The torso was too long, elongated like a stretched piece of taffy. The arms hung down low, past the knees, ending in clusters of vector points that represented fingers.
The head tracking box, a yellow cube that usually sits steadily on the neck, was snapping back and forth violently, vibrating as if the entity was shaking its head at a speed impossible for a human. I tried to rationalize it. "It's a mirror reflection," I whispered. But the window blinds were closed. And I was sitting. This thing was standing. I slowly raised my right hand and waved at the empty corner. "Hello?" The skeleton stopped vibrating. Its head stabilized. It raised its long, green arm. And it waved back. It wasn't mirroring me. I waved my right hand. It waved its left hand. It was communicating. A cold sensation washed over me. I needed to prove this was a glitch. I needed to prove that the sensor was just misinterpreting depth data. I grabbed a high-powered green laser pointer from my desk. My theory was simple. The Kinect works by projecting infrared dots. If there's a physical object there, the dots hit it. If there's nothing there, the dots hit the wall. I aimed the laser at the chest of the green skeleton on the screen. I pressed the button. The bright green dot appeared on the white wall in the corner. I let out a breath. "See?" I said aloud. "Nothing there. Light passes through." But then I looked at the monitor. The green skeleton was looking down at its chest. It raised a hand and touched the spot on its sternum where the laser beam would have passed through. It rubbed the spot, as if it burned. Then, it slowly lifted its head. The yellow tracking box stared directly into the camera lens. And it started walking towards me. I rolled my chair backward, the wheels screeching against the hardwood floor. The skeleton stopped moving. It stood in the middle of the room now. It seemed curious about the sensor itself. It leaned forward, its virtual face inches from the lens. It reached out a green, stick figure hand and touched the virtual camera. And then, the image on my screen shook. Not a digital glitch. The physical camera unit on my desk rattled. I heard the plastic creak. I saw the tripod shift a millimeter. Something invisible had just physically touched my equipment. I grabbed the mouse and switched the view mode from skeleton tracking to depth view. Depth view shows the raw infrared data. It looks like a grayscale heat map. Objects close to the camera are white. Objects far away are black. In the depth view, my room looked like a grainy nightmare. I looked at the spot where the skeleton was standing. If it was a person, it should be a white silhouette. If it was empty here, it should be gray. But it was neither. Where the entity stood, there was a void. A pitch black, absolute void in the data. It wasn't reflecting the infrared light. It was absorbing it. It was a sinkhole in reality eating the photons. And then, I noticed the background. In the depth view, the doorway leading to my kitchen was filled with shapes. More black voids. More skeletons. The console log on the right side of the screen started scrolling rapidly, filling with red text. Body 2, detected. Body 3, detected. Body 4, detected. I looked at the skeleton view again. They were clipping through the walls. They were rising up from the floor. Tall, thin figures. Small, crawling figures. Some were missing limbs. Some had heads that floated detached from their bodies. They were flooding into the room. The Kinect can track up to 6 bodies simultaneously. The software was overloading. The green lines were tangling together, creating a chaotic web of geometry in the center of my room. They were gathering around my chair. Gathering around me. I turned on my phone flashlight and swept a beam across the room. Empty. Just dust motes floating in the air. But the air was freezing. I could see my breath puffing out in white clouds. The temperature in the apartment had dropped 20 degrees in 2 minutes. I looked back at the screen. One of the tall skeletons, a figure that would have been 7 feet tall if it had flesh, was leaning over my shoulder. Its face tracking box locked onto mine. The audio source angle indicator on the Kinect software swung around. It pointed directly behind my right ear. It was picking up audio. I couldn't hear anything with my ears. The room was silent, but the Kinect microphone array was picking up a whisper right next to my head. I lunged for the mouse. I wanted to close the program. My cursor froze. System overload. CPU usage 100%. The skeletons weren't just passive observations anymore. They were interacting with the physics engine of the software interface. I watched in horror as the small skeleton, the first one I saw, climbed onto my virtual desk on the screen. And then, in the real world, my coffee mug moved. It didn't fall. It slid. It slid 6 inches across the desk, pushed by an invisible finger. Then it tipped over. Smash. Cold coffee and ceramic shards exploded across the floor. I jumped up from my chair, backing away until my back hit the wall. "Okay, that's enough," I yelled. "Stop it!" The reaction was instantaneous. The skeletons on the screen all stopped moving. Every single one of them turned their heads. They weren't looking at the camera anymore. They were looking at me. They knew I could see them. They knew I was the observer. Then, the Kinect motor whirred. The sensor has a small motorized base that allows it to tilt up and down. It started moving on its own. It tilted up. Past me. Past the skeletons. It pointed towards the ceiling. I looked at the monitor to see what it was tracking. The blood drained from my face. Clinging to the ceiling, directly above my head, was another skeleton. But this one wasn't green. The software highlighted it in red. Error, unknown skeleton structure. It didn't look human. It had too many limbs. 6 arms. 4 legs. Its spine was bent backwards in a U-shape. It looked like a human spider. And it was slowly descending, dropping down on invisible threads. Its red tracking box locked onto the top of my head. I didn't wait. I ripped the USB cable out of the PC tower. The screen froze on that last frame, the red spider thing midair, falling towards me, its arms outstretched. The room went dark as the monitors went to sleep. I grabbed my car keys and ran. I didn't even lock the door. I ran down the 3 flights of stairs, got into my car, and drove. I sat in a 24-hour diner until the sun came up. I went back to the apartment this morning, in the broad daylight. The room was a wreck. It wasn't just the coffee mug. My bookshelf was tipped over. My posters were torn off the walls. The acoustic foam was shredded, looking like claw marks had torn through it. It looked like a physical fight had happened in the room. But the Kinect was gone. The tripod was still clamped to the desk. The USB cable was still dangling. But the sensor unit itself, the rectangular black bar, was missing. It hadn't been stolen by a burglar. My wallet was still on the desk. My PC was untouched. I checked the security camera I have installed in the hallway outside my apartment door. I watched the footage from last night, timestamped 3:15 a.m. My apartment door opens. No one comes out. But you see the Kinect sensor, floating in the air. It floats out the door, hovering at about 4 feet off the ground. It turns in the air, the lens is pointing back at my door for a second, then it turns down the hallway. It floats into the stairwell and disappears. Like someone was carrying it. Someone small. They took the camera. Maybe they didn't like being seen. Or maybe they needed it. They are blind without the technology. They exist in the void. But with the sensor, they can map our world. They can see the geometry. They can see us. I am moving out next week. But I got a notification on my phone an hour ago. I have the Xbox app installed on my phone, linked to my PC account. The notification popped up. New achievement unlocked. Player 2 has joined the game. I don't have a player 2. And I haven't turned on my PC since last night. If you have an old Kinect gathering dust in your closet, leave it there. Do not plug it in. Do not download the SDK. Do not give them eyes. Because once they know you can see them, they start looking back.